So if you've had a crisis in your life, if you've hit rock bottom, gone through divorce or a bad breakup or something like that, you know that you essentially have two options. You can either stay where you're at, you can stay stuck, you can accept fate, you can become a broken person, or if you're watching this channel, you probably know that your only other real option is to pick up the pieces and to bounce back better than before. So that's the topic of this video, is exactly how to do it. And I call this Lifemaxxing. Now you can apply this at any point in time. You do not need to wait until your life is in pieces before you start to think, hey, maybe I can be better. But there are essentially about 8 areas of your life that can be improved when you focus on them. And by doing so, you will exponentially improve the quality of your life, improve the quality of the person you are. You will attract new opportunities, you will inspire people, you will essentially become a different person. And I hope you are ready for that, because there's really no other option. Again, you can stay where you're at, which is going to be comfortable but painful over the long term, or you can change, which is going to be massively discomfortable at times, but it will yield results in terms of your quality of life, in terms of looking back on your life, how proud you are. It will create a better story of your life, and it will, you'll become somebody who people look up to. So if you're ready for that, stick around. So there's really 8 areas of life that you can improve starting today. Now, none of these are going to be quick, but all of them can be done. So let's talk about them. Let's get them on the board. So the first area is Looksmaxxing. This is going to include things like fitness, face, fashion, and hygiene. Now, I probably misspelled that. That's okay. I don't care. But all of these areas can be improved, right? You can start going to the gym. I've talked about this before. I would highly recommend high intensity interval training in terms of cardio, and then some sort of weightlifting. Another great exercise is some sort of martial arts that's not BJJ. Don't roll around with a bunch of dudes. But something like even Taekwondo is better than nothing. But boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, these sorts of things that are high intensity will be amazing in terms of your looks and your confidence. Now, don't worry about getting punched in the face. It's going to happen. You need to get used to it. In terms of face, you need to be sculpting your face, right? You need to be working out your jaw muscles. You can do thumb pulling. You can look up tutorials on that. Lots of 17-year-olds love to do that. It does work. You can get a jaw liner to help the jaw muscles. You can do facial massages, right? There's a lot of lymph nodes that allow for the buildup of fluids in your face. So you should be massaging your face, massaging them out. Another thing you can get is a gua sha, which will help you work out some of the wrinkles and fine lines. Also, as you get older, you lose collagen, so you need to be developing a better skincare routine. Things like a night cream, those sorts of things. It sounds a little bit gay, but unless you want to look older than your age, you should be doing it. So those are some things you can do. Fashion, you can always dress better, right? And when you're fit, clothes tend to fit better. Now, you need to be developing your own personal style that kind of signals to people, hey, I didn't just blindly put on clothes today. I did put some thought and effort into my fashion. You don't need to look like a homo, but look like an individual, not necessarily just an NPC. That's what I would recommend. So have your own personal style. It should fit a sort of archetype of the person you want to present yourself as. Something like a businessman, or an athlete, or a fuckboy. Something like that. Some sort of attractive archetype that people tend to gravitate towards. You know, the rock and roller, the rebel, you know, if you're a thug, that's fine, the thug look. Some sort of archetype. Don't be too ambiguous, because ambiguity tends to get lost in the fog. You'll become unmemorable. You don't want to do that. So, last one is hygiene, right? I don't know why I have to say this, but you should be like shaving the back of your neck, trimming the hair on your ears, your nose, those sorts of things. Like anytime I see somebody comment online and they have a scraggly beard, I just instantly ignore anything that they say because they cannot even take the 15 minutes to trim their beard. Why would they be entitled to an opinion about how to run society? Think about it. Like if you can't even take basic care of yourself, you are signaling to people that you don't know anything, that you have no opinion worth listening to. So that is Looksmaxxing. This is something that takes time, right? You're not going to get fit overnight. But start today, you know, go to the gym 3, 4, 5 times a week. If you really want to get into it and, you know, it feels good, so it sounds extreme, but exercise 7 days a week, right? You probably already scroll TikTok or watch YouTube videos 7 days a week. Nobody calls that extreme. So why is exercising 7 days a week called extreme? I'll tell you why. It's because modern society wants you to be sloven. Most people want to have lives of comfort, and they don't want you to disrupt that and make them feel uncomfortable by showing them that there's another way possible. So really focus in on this. I put this number 1 for a reason, because this is the first thing that people notice about you is your appearance. And if you can fix this, you instantly give yourself a slight edge going forward in any sort of interaction. So Looksmaxxing, again, a little bit of muscles, you know, work on your face, make sure it's not saggy or wrinkly or just ugly. You know, fix your fashion, not the most important thing, but definitely don't look like you just crawled out of bed and threw on a shirt that was on the ground. And hygiene, you know, smell good, fresh and clean, that sort of thing. Next thing is Behaviormaxxing. Now this is the way that you sub-communicate to people. When I say behaviormaxxing, is when you're standing there, are you closed off? Do you have bad posture? Is your head down? Or do you stand with confidence, right? Are you fidgeting? Are you like biting your nails? Something like that. Behaviormaxxing, you want to be displaying behaviors that signal to the world that you are confident, competent, you know what you're talking about, you're used to people listening to you, you're used to women being attracted to you. And when you can do these things, it sub-communicates that you have high status and value. So this is another thing. And this again takes a little bit of time, but working on things like vocal tonality, posture, being relaxed, you know, not like value scanning the room every time you walk in. Like if you look at like a video of, I don't know, like Richard Branson, right? Richard Branson, when he's sitting in a room, he's very present. Everything is right here in front of him. He's not like, what's going on over there? What's going on over there? He has no need. If there was a threat, he has bodyguards to take care of it. And he knows that since he's the center of value, everybody's going to want to come to him. He has no need to go to anybody else. So again, these small micro behaviors that communicate to people what sort of value you have relative to the room. Now you can, over time, fix these so that they display higher status. Again, like I said, tonality, positive, you know, open body language, relaxed look, you know, not like this. You don't want to look like a serial killer, eyelids down, those sorts of things. Like if you want to practice that relaxed look, just pretend like you're stoned or a little bit drunk, right? Like let your eyelids relax, slow down your speech, low vocal tonality, and then, you know, you come across as much more powerful, much more interesting. Obviously, I speak a little bit faster in these videos because people tend to scroll away. So What you see in a video necessarily, where there's lots of jerky movements, is not necessarily how you want to act in real life in the wild. Next up, Financemaxxing. Now, I hesitate putting this on here because a lot of people exaggerate this. They act like if you get rich, all your problems solve themselves. That's not true. Finance only helps you get rid of some problems. It gives you new problems, and that's okay because it's better to be sad in a nice apartment with a nice car with nice clothes in a nice area of town than it is to be sad with bills piling up, quite honestly. So Financemaxxing helps you have a nicer apartment with a nice view. It gives you options of places to travel. You don't necessarily have to go to a 9-to-5 all the time. You have more time to enjoy, to relax. You can dedicate more money to your health. You can buy supplements, nice gym memberships, these sorts of things. So Financemaxxing will improve your life, right? And how to do this is, on one hand, don't spend frivolously. Like if you don't have like a high-paying job or a side income, then don't waste money on bullshit. You probably don't need Netflix. There's probably a lot of subscriptions that you don't need. You don't need the fancy latte in the morning. You can make coffee at home. These little sorts of things. But you're never going to get rich doing that. So you do need to develop better sources of income, whether that's something online that you're selling a product, whether you are selling a service, whether you just have a side hustle where you flip stuff on Facebook Marketplace. Whatever it is, focus on a way that you can make more money with less time and effort. Best of all is if you can get other people to do the work for you. If you can outsource, if you can be the person who makes the offer, makes the promise, and then get somebody else to do the work, all the better. But Financemaxxing is basically nullifying cheap problems. And getting optionality. So it's having those options that makes everything else easier. Again, it's not getting rid of all your problems, but it's definitely giving you more options of what to do with your time, what to do with your efforts, so that you can focus on these other areas. Because if you're drowning in debt, if you're having to work all the time, then it's very difficult to focus on your looks and your behaviors and the other things that I'm going to talk about in just a moment. So again, like if your life is in shambles, you're not going to be able to fix all of these at once, but you do need to fix all of them. You need to focus on what is your strength, okay, accentuate that. What are your natural talents, okay, accentuate those. And then you need to figure out what is your weakest link, and you need to fix that. You definitely need to fix the weakest link. But let's go into the next one. This one is Psychologymaxxing. This is getting a better understanding of people, right? It's getting to the state where you're not wondering why people are doing what they're doing. It's knowing that people are exceptionally emotional and being accepting of that. So it's basically gaining empathy. And it doesn't mean you necessarily need to sympathize with people. Like you can understand why people do something and still not think it's the best thing to do. Like you can understand why people go to Walmart on Black Friday and fight each other over big screen TVs without necessarily being that person. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to apply some of those same principles in your own interactions with people so that you can be more effective, right? If you can understand the emotional triggers that motivate people to act the way they do, then guess what? You can use those same emotional triggers, whether it's in your business, whether it's in the way you operate with other people, but this is going to help you a lot. And it's also going to make you less frustrated, because instead of being like, why do they do this? Why do they do that? That's stupid, blah, 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 blah. You can just say, okay, well, I understand that people tend to gravitate towards comfort. They tend to minimize energy expenditures. They tend to avoid threats. They tend to want things that they feel are scarce, those sorts of things. And you can apply that in your own interactions. So Psychologymaxxxing will make your interactions with other people go a lot smoother. The next thing, and this is probably so overlooked, but I'm going to call it bromaxxing. This is cultivating a circle of male friends that push you to be better, because the women you're with, they are not going to do this. They're not going to be like, oh, you should definitely go to the gym. You should not skip the gym. You should definitely, work. I mean, they might want you to do Looksmaxxxing, but they're not going to be the person who's giving you the good pointers about how to do it. They might throw out a tidbit of knowledge every now and then, and you should definitely listen to that. But you're going to really get that sense of companionship, that sense of camaraderie from spending time with other high quality men. Now, where a lot of guys fuck this up is they have the same circle of friends that they kind of fell into from high school, or fell into from work, or fell into from whatever social activity they were doing, and then they haven't really cultivated it. They haven't cleaned house. They've kind of accepted who they're hanging out with, and it's just kind of, okay, these are the people I'm with, I just better get along to get along sort of thing, without actually looking for better friends, without actually vetting the people that they hang out with too much. Or it's just, how does this person make me feel? Oh, I feel uncomfortable because this person is a little bit ahead of me and I don't want to feel lower, so I'm not going to hang out with them. I'm going to be consumed by envy instead. So you need to be cultivating a solid circle of men around you. And Tai Lopez talks about the law of the thirds, right? You need a third of people who are a little bit lower than you, and you can be a guide to them. You can be a mentor. You need about a third of people who are about the same level. These are the people that challenge you, who you can build things with. And then you need about a third of people who are ahead of you in the journey. These people can guide you. They can give you help for pointers, and they can give you that outside perspective that will let you know how to get to where you want to go. So I would highly recommend observing this, right? Don't, just because somebody's lower than you on their journey, don't necessarily write them off, because that gives you the opportunity to teach them, to guide them. And by doing so, you will improve yourself. And there will be people on your same level. Cultivate them, because you know that they will challenge you to be better yourself. And then seek out those mentors, those people who are ahead of you, who started where you started, but got to the place where you want to get to. And then you can ask them, hey, how did you do that? Or why did you do it that way? Very simple. What you do want to avoid is you want to avoid low energy people, no low energy people who are always complaining, and people who are envious and bitter. Because this sort of envy, it doesn't help anybody. It certainly doesn't help the people around them. These are the sort of people who will tear down people around them so that they can feel comfortable in their own station of life. And of course, low energy people, they're not going to encourage you to do any of these things, so why would you keep them in your life? You wouldn't if you're intelligent. So that's what that is. All right, so that is bromaxxing. Now the next one is going to be probably the most controversial. And this is geomaxxing, or we'll say locationmaxxing. Now the next one's going to be the most controversial. We're going to call this locationmaxxing. Now the reality is the number one way that people have solved problems in their life throughout human history was to go to a new area. Like if you're not being served by the place where you're at, if it's not allowing you room for growth, then you should certainly go somewhere else, right? This has been the story of human history. At one point, we were all bouncing around Africa, and then a group of us were like, well, let's split. We don't like this place. greener pastures up north, something like that. So they split, and this has been the story of human history. So go to a place that best serves you. Find places that are filled with aspirational people or filled with opportunities where you can go to and you can take advantage of those opportunities. Same thing, this goes beyond just moving though, because you need to be the master of your own domain. Like, you need to be very mindful of your surroundings. Don't let your apartment become a mess. Don't let your space be disordered, or you will be disordered yourself. So you need to be very mindful of the way you have your own apartment arranged. It needs to be clutter-free for the most part, or it needs to be filled with things that inspire you to be better. Now, this is Locationmaxxing, and again, like, you want a place that people feel comfortable at, but most importantly, you want a place that you feel comfortable growing at. Locationmaxxing. Master your environment. Very important, so underrated. Like, people will just kind of like move to where they can get a job and they stay there for the rest of their lives, irregardless of what else happens. Like, if you're living in a town and it's going to shit, why are you staying there? Like, if you were born in a small town, why are you there unless you yourself are kind of retarded? I mean, it's very simple. There are places that are behavioral sinks. The only people who stay there are the people with low ambitions. Everybody else moves, and then if you don't move, you're stuck with the people with low ambitions, which means you must have low ambitions yourself. So, Locationmaxxing, figure out a place to go. You don't have to know everything about the place. You can leap before you look, trust that the net will appear, and if it doesn't, well, you learned something, right? You became stronger from it, and you can continue this process. As long as it didn't kill you, as long as it didn't maim you, and even if it did, you can improve all of these areas going forward. But this is just one of them, is being that master of your own domain, being very mindful about where you're at, the space you're at, the people around you, those sorts of things. Now, all of this falls flat if you don't have this. Discipline maxing. This is very simply doing hard things. Because quite frankly, it's easy to not do this. Like, it's easy to let your hygiene go. It's easy to not go to the gym. It's easy to not be mindful of the way that you're speaking. It's easy to not work on a side hustle, all of these things. So it takes actual effort to do this. So you need to build the muscle of spending effort when it's hard. Very simple. Like, you should lean into discomfort. If something makes you feel uncomfortable, if something makes you feel afraid, you should use that as the guidepost. Okay, that's what I need to do. This thing is making me feel a little bit tense, so I need to move towards it, not only so that I can get over that tenseness with that one particular thing, but so that I can become the sort of person who does difficult things, who is, willing to do things that other people won't. And this will, again, it will make you somebody that people look up to, that inspires other people, somebody who people can depend on when things get difficult. Because the last thing you want to do is become the person with no discipline. It makes all of this other stuff harder, but then people also know, hey, if when times get tough, we can't depend on that guy. And you don't want to be that person. And this is the final nail in the coffin, I would say. This is being extremely comfortable with who you are and who you're becoming, who you want to be, and being exceptionally unapologetic about it. This is turning your personality up to 11. Now, I don't want you to be like, well, I'm naturally a slob, I'm naturally socially awkward, I'm an introvert, and I kind of like living in my mom's basement. That's who I am. I'm going to turn that up to 11. No, you don't want to do that. You want to identify the best parts of yourself. You want to identify the parts of yourself that will serve you over the long run, and you need to accentuate those. Like, there's a part of you who isn't a slob. There's a part of you who doesn't want to live in your mom's basement, who wants bigger things for your life. So you need to accentuate those. You need to be very conscious about the sort of person you want to become, but you need to be very unapologetic about that. Figure out those things that are your rough edges, that maybe some people really dislike, but that do serve you and that you do want to accentuate, and then just do it. Fuck those people who don't like it. It's their problem. So identity maxing is identifying the key aspects of your personality that are most core to who you are and who you are becoming. Most importantly, that are most core in serving who you want to become, and then leaning into those. So I would say some ways of doing this are journaling, meditation, simply reflection, and then just practicing being vulnerable and honest, being very, with that sort of behavior maxing. Don't be nervous about who you are. Don't be like, I'm into rock music. I'm into rock music. That's what I like. It is what it is, sort of thing. Some girls might not like it, but the fact is, most people, they don't really care about rock music one way or another. What they want is somebody who's comfortable and who's confident with who they are. So if you're confident about liking rock music and that's who you are, then women will like it. If you're unconfident about liking rock music, and if you're kind of pinging off other people, is it okay that I like rock music? People are gonna be, they're not gonna like that. They're gonna want to separate themselves from that because they will see you as this weak, sort of spineless person. So yeah, this is the Lifemaxxing. This is how to pick yourself up. So you've had a breakup, you've had a divorce, you've had some sort of crisis of faith in yourself. Here is how to fix it. These are the 8 areas. Now I would say you're not going to do any of this overnight, but what you need to do is you need to identify one thing to work on each week, right? You're like, this week I'm going to work on Psychologymaxxing. I'm going to really focus on how other people feel at all times. I'm going to walk through the world, I'm going to be outside, and I'm just going to be noticing what are the patterns that people are doing? Like when they're talking to each other, who is taking the lead role? How is the other person feeling? And then whenever I'm talking to somebody else, how are they feeling? Really hone in on this one thing for just 1 week, and then journal about it a little bit, and then the next week try something else. And then do this for a year, bouncing back and forth between different ones. Maybe take a few weeks where you focus on something like Behaviormaxxing, or a few weeks where you really focus on leaning into your own personality. And then over the course of a year, or maybe even 2 years, you will level up so far that you will be unrecognizable to your old self. I guarantee you, if you are to apply this, you will drastically change your life for the better. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I would love to hear from you. And if you have any more pointers about how to bounce back stronger than before, let me know as well. And I will talk to you next time. Peace.